that is crisp. Long live your turtle here. In this video, we are going to address this atrocious look, which is a bare bottom tank. This is currently, it's a temporary setup, to be honest, and I don't want to invest in something like sand or a real substrate, and same thing with the background as well, but it's really this bare bottom that's getting me, and I want a nice temporary quick solution, or just clean solution, to making my tank look better. So what we're going to do is we're going to install a tile. Now, I'm not trying to completely bash bare bottom tanks because there are definite benefits. One being it's extremely easy to maintain and keep clean. I mean, that's really it. That's why people have bare bottom tanks. They might make a certain type of fish stand out, but in general, it's really just because it's easy to maintain and deal with versus small pebbles, which the turtles can eat, and that's dangerous for them, and they build up a lot of crud between the pebbles if you're not doing frequent and thorough water changes with a suction hose. Or you have something like sand, which just can be really messy. You gotta rinse it, and it can just be difficult to deal with, especially if you need to move tanks or something like that in the future. So what I want to do in this video is show you what you can do to capture the essence of a bare bottom tank, which is that easy maintenance, but also make it look good, make it look a little bit more natural or just more pleasing to the eye. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna be installing a porcelain tile. Also works for a ceramic and maybe even glass if you can find it. So let me show you how we're gonna take this tile and make it a beautiful looking bottom for a tank. We're gonna add a little black background, and this whole tank is gonna transform into something a little bit more pleasing to the eye. Let's get to it! So the first thing we're gonna do is pick out a tile. And I found this to be the hardest thing to do because once you go to the hardware store and you go down the bathroom tile or the floor tile aisle and you just see all of the options, you're just gonna be overwhelmed, encumbered with the decision that you have to make. And this decision came with 4 different considerations. First consideration is what type of tile are you going to buy? And this will cross over with the second thing to consider, but the first thing you want to understand is kind of what type of tile you want. Porcelain, which is this tile here. You have ceramic, which is going to be very similar to porcelain. You have slate, which just has a different texture and different overall vibe to it. You could do marble, but we'll get to why you shouldn't do marble, so maybe cross that one off the list immediately. And you shouldn't do anything like limestone or sandstone or anything like that. But you could also consider something like a mosaic or glass as well. Now, what will help cross off, I think, a lot of your options and help you narrow down what tiles are going to be best for your aquarium is safety. And by safety, I mean a tile that's fish, turtle safe, aquarium safe. Now, you're going to the hardware store, you can never be guaranteed that you're going to get something that's 100% aquarium safe. You just simply can't. There's always going to be a risk there, and you can't beat around that bush. But you can reduce this risk considerably by just understanding the different types of tiles and how they might react with the water or how they might be detrimental to the health of your turtles. So definitely try to research on the side about what your tile might have in it that could be potentially harmful. I'm not going to give sweeping approval to you that you can use any tile that is ceramic or porcelain. So you need to weigh the risks and make your own judgment on what tile is going to be best for your aquarium. But I will leave you with some notes. I would avoid marble or some sort of limestone or sandstone because those are going to change your water parameters. They're going to change the hardness. And there's just a higher chance that those are going to be more reactive with your water in general. And you want stability in your tank. You don't want to be chasing any sort of water parameter or not understanding what's dissolving into the tank. So I would say the biggest rule of thumb when picking out what type of tile for safety of your turtles, and that is to pick something that is inert. It will not react with your water. Where you want to focus in on is a ceramic tile, a porcelain tile, a glass tile, or a slate tile. Now, where you need to get concerned about those types of tiles is when there's a glaze on it. So this is actually a glaze on top of this porcelain tile. Some of them can and will leach whatever's in the glaze into the water column, and again, it's going to create instability, could be toxic to your turtle. You don't want that to happen. There's a quick and easy test that you can do to understand how reactive your glaze of your tile is, and that is the lemon test. So you cut a lemon wedge out of the lemon and you just place it. I like to squeeze a little bit of the liquid onto a corner of the tile, and then I just place the lemon wedge on another corner of the tile, and then you wait 30 minutes. After that 30 minutes, take a look under your lemon wedge, over where your little puddle was. Is there any change to the tile or the lemon at all? Does the lemon change color? Does the tile change color? If so, then your glaze or your tile or whatever's on your tile is reacting with the acidity of the lemon. And that indicates that it'll probably react in your water column of your aquarium. So you don't want to use that tile. So I did that test with this tile. Absolutely no reaction happened. This tile is inert, and I'm confident that it's going to be safe to go in the aquarium. Other things to consider are, does it have a glaze that incorporates some sort of metal or metallic, kind of looks holographic? I would be really suspicious of those, because any sort of metal, could be a heavy metal, will dissolve in the water column, be toxic to your turtles. Number 3, choosing tile size. This is super important because, at least for me, I think the less tiles the better. And you also want it designed so that you don't have a bunch of mismatched pieces, unless you can come up with an artistic way to make that look good. So for example, why I chose a 1 foot by 2 foot tile is I have a 75-gallon aquarium and I'm putting these tiles in. That's about 17 inches inside width. Now, most of the tiles offered on the store shelves are going to be this 2 feet by 1 foot, or 1 foot by 1 foot, or 6 inch by 6 inch. Those are the common tile sizes. There are some outliers if you're lucky, or you could order something online. That would make your life a little easier, so you don't have to cut things. But this one, I know I can just make 1 cut for 3 of the pieces, and then 2 cuts for the last piece, and I'll have 4 tiles in here that all look like they're pretty much the exact same size. Because if I were just throw a 12 by 12 in here, you'd have glass on all sides of it, or glass on the front and back, and it just wouldn't look good at all because it would still be bare bottom but with some tiles on it. Just sloppy work, sloppy work. You don't want that. All right, so measuring the inside of the tank, a little bit tricky, but we can do it. Your best references are your back and front panels of glass. You can see the thickness really easily here. And then you'll also notice there's a little silicone. So we want to account for that a little bit. It's exactly 7 1/4. But like I mentioned, there's some silicone there that's going to have a little bit of thickness in the fillet there. And so I'm going to pull it back. All right, to cut a tile, actually really simple. What you're going to need is the very complicated name of tile cutter. It's a basic tool that you can get at your local hardware store. You could buy one for around 30 to 50 bucks, or you could just rent one for 15, 20 bucks. I just rented it because I don't want another tool lying around that I don't use very often. But it's a simple tool. What it basically does is it has a little wheel on it that will score your tile where you want to cut it. So you'll drag it back and forth like I'm showing here. And then once you have a nice score on there, you're going to put another little mechanism, a little presser mechanism that pushes the tile so that it cracks along that score line. And then you have a nice cut like that. And then I like to wash off the tile just because it's from a hardware store. It's kind of grip. Now, checking the fit on my first tile, I did notice that there's quite a gap on the edge, and that's because with my length and with all that silicone buildup on the side of the tank corner there, the edge of the tile, which is a nice 90 degrees, gets in the way. And there's no really good way to cut porcelain because it's so rigid and brittle that what I do here is I take these little pinchers. This is just like an old tool I found in my dad's toolbox, and I just try to cut a little curve to the edge, and that will help fit it within the silicone buildup on the side corner of that tank. And I'll admit, this is not a pretty method. It's just kind of, we're going to cut the edges and see how it goes, trying to take off as little as possible. If this is a ceramic, it'll be a lot easier. It's a little bit easier to work with. But porcelain, because it's so brittle, it is hard and it's kind of difficult to do this well. But I get it to a point where it actually works pretty well and doesn't look completely awful. And most importantly, the tile now lays flat and up against that side edge of the tank. All right, next 2 tiles to deal with are going to be those center tiles. Those are your easiest tiles to deal with. You don't have to be a stone carver in the corners for the silicone buildup. But in general, I did find the tile cutting process a little bit tricky at first, so definitely have some spare tiles to break. So with those center tiles in there, I got to measure that last little bit up to a little chunkier part of the silicone, and lo and behold, 1 more tile was the perfect fit
for this tank. So 4 total tiles without changing that shorter 12-inch nominal width at all.
All right, all 4 tiles successfully installed. Lucked out a bit here because I got 4 tiles there and I didn't have to change the width at all. That nominal 12 inches, which is about an 1/8 inch shorter actual width, perfectly fit within the confines of the sidewalls, and I didn't have to cut lengthwise because I was getting a little worried. If that was like a 1/4 inch too long, it would have been a really hard sliver cut on that manual press tool, and I probably would have had to get like a wet saw to make a really fine cut like that. And there you have it, folks. The porcelain tiles, they look really good. I actually think this looks a lot better than I even envisioned. It's so crisp. I got rid of the fake plant, but with just that dark contrasting driftwood with the black background that I just installed and those 4 tiles. What makes this an awesome project too is that was a huge change to the overall look of this tank. It didn't require sand, any kind of rinsing or anything like that. The cost, it was super cheap. This was 4 2x1 tiles, so that's $8. And then the tool itself to rent for the day, you could have got it for like 4 hours instead. It would have been cheaper, but that was $20. So we're at $28. And those little snips I used, you could probably use pliers or something that you already have. But let's say you have to buy the tool. There's actual snipping tools. The one I used was some old antique tool from my grandfather. The actual tool is probably $12. So grand total, not owning any tiles or tools, to this beautiful tile substrate, $40. I think that's totally worth it. Thanks for watching. This is the Super Turtle Basker, brought to you by Long Live Your Turtle. Check out the link in the description of this video if you want to purchase your very own. Thanks for watching, and long live your turtle.